Welcome back, everybody, to your creativity. This is kind of a special Sundance edition since today, serendipitously, the day of recording is the 30th anniversary of Kevin Smith's Clerks. And we are joined today by one of the leads of that film, Brian O'Halloran, Dante Hicks himself. How are you, Brian?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me on. Yes, it's so weird that today is the 30th anniversary of the first screening, the first of four that we had at Sundance of '94. So very, very weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
That voice you just heard is our friend Molly. She's my partner in crime over on the Ask the Stripper podcast, and she helps me on here from time to time. Welcome, Molly.
Hello.
And we're also joined by Terry Burden, who has quite a bit of Sundance experience. Her years up on Park City Television. Welcome, Terry.
Thanks, friend. Always good to be with you and with all of you today. How about that? That such an auspicious day in the life of an unforgettable film, and right here nearby our world famous film festival. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest pivotal moments in my entire life was the Sundance Film Festival. It'll always have a special place in my heart. That year, the last time I was there was a 15-year retrospective screening of Clerks. Myself and Kevin Smith went up there to do a Q&A, an intro and a Q&A of the screening back then as well. So has Park City grown and the whole area grown since 1994, I'll tell you that much.
Brian, if you would, take us back for a moment and tell us a little bit about your recollections of kind of the lead-in to coming to this big film festival, and you guys being the essence of Sundance and independent filmmakers. Talk about I assume there was some great anticipation, and talk a little bit about what the vibe was like back then.
Sure. So back in '93, we got to go back in '93 when we made the film, late winter, early spring, around the April time period. We had made Clerks. A local filmmaker in the Jersey Shore area of New Jersey, Kevin Smith, had gone to Vancouver Film School for 1 year and decided to drop out, come back to his hometown in the Highlands, New Jersey, and decided he was going to get some money together and get his two friends, Dave Klein and Scott Mosier, who also went to Vancouver Film School, to come down to Jersey and make this film that he wrote based on his own employment at the Quick Stop Groceries in Leonardo, New Jersey, which he then did. He wrote the script while working shifts at both the Quick Stop and the RST video store next door that the owner of both did. He had held auditions in the local community theater, the First Avenue Playhouse, which is still around today in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, and asked the owners of the Playhouse, this is before people had cell phones, this was before the internet, if we could use your theater to audition local actors, and then could you call up your stable of actors to let them know. Plus, he put in listings and backstage paper and the local paper where Wednesdays were the audition notices in the arts section. And so when we made the film, we went through the audition process. We then got down to making the film. And then the film, when it was shot, and we shot it on 16 millimeter, Kevin then edited the film on a Steenbeck, which is you get raw footage and you put it through a scroll and then the little screen, and you literally physically cut and tape the film together. And once it was put together that summer in the back of the video store, he then started to submit to film festivals. And one of the first places he submitted was the Independent Feature Film Market, a film festival that was held down in New York City in the Village, right at the for Houston there, and at the Angelica Theater. And so we were one of the films selected for that festival. I believe it was another 10-day festival, but we were literally, our slot was one screening on a Sunday at 11 a.m. Nobody was there. Pretty much nobody was there. When we walked in, there was like 15 of us, and the rest was maybe 5 or 6 scatterings of people. And we thought, oh, okay. I mean, we were excited to finally see the film up on a screen, but we were kind of disappointed that no one was in the audience. Um, but fate looked upon us, and at least one person was in that audience. And that one person was a gentleman by the name of Bob Hawke, who was known in the film industry, yes, as being a finder of films, as being a script doctor, as being a kind of a go-between into is for filmmakers and distributors and film festivals and stuff. He saw the film, and then he reached out to his network of film lovers in the New York City area, Amy Taubin and people at Miramax, people at Fox, Searchlight, things like that. And the word got back to Kevin, because Kevin got a phone call from various people going, "Hey, I heard your film is the film to see from this festival." And they were like, "Where'd you hear that from?" Kevin would say. And we're like, "Oh, we just from someone of good authority." And it was okay. And they'd like to get a VHS copy of the film. Once that happened, and Kevin was still asking people, "Who is this person that saw the film and is saying all these rave, these things about it?" Finally, someone revealed to him that it was a gentleman by the name of Bob Hawke. And then he reached out to find Bob Hawke. Bob said, "You need to submit to Sundance." And he's like, "Sundance? But that's like the premiere." He's like, "Trust me, just do it." And we submitted. And then by that October or whenever it was, you get the notice that you're in. Once we got in, we were like, "Holy crap." So then we all decided, well, who, obviously Kevin and Dave and Scott were going to go. But who of us were going to go? So we decided to say, hey, if we all pool our money together, we can rent like a 2-bedroom townhouse in Park City. And, depending on how much you contribute is, do you get a bed? Do you get a couch? Do you get a space on the floor? So I couldn't, at the time I was working, I couldn't really go for the full 10 days, but I could go for the last 5 days. So I think I paid for a corner of a room on the floor to go to the festival. So the first 2 screenings had happened, and there was this kind of buzz. First of all, tickets for this movie sold out before the festival started, which I hear is a rarity when it comes to Sundance. So when the first 2 started to the first 2 screenings happened, and then I got there, and then the following 2 screenings were going on, and myself and Marilyn Gigliotti, who plays Veronica in the original Clerks, we were walking down the street in Park City where people were stopping her. I'm like, "Oh my God, we loved your work in that Clerks movie." And she was like, "Oh, thank you." And she's like, "And this is the guy who played Dante." I was clean shaven at the time because I was doing another role in another project. So people were like, "Oh, I didn't recognize you without the Van Dyke." Um, so that was kind of weird. Is that kind of feeling in 1994, no less, for a film that dialogue wise was pretty racy at the time. At that time, today it's like Sesame Street kind of language
Yeah.
compared to what was on screen today. So that started this whole kind of like, wow, this could be something. When people asked, did you ever think it would become this big kind of cult iconic kind of following film? I was like, no, I thought I'd just have a VHS copy that I would get to show friends going, hey, look what me and a bunch of people did over at that store a couple of towns over, kind of a thing. So it's nice to know that from Sundance, when the final screening happened, because Harvey Weinstein was sent an advance copy in New York before we even went to Sundance, and he was sat down in the office, saw black and white, went, "Fuck this," excuse me. He was like, "The hell with this," and he was out. And then they said, "No, you got to see it again." And he stayed as long as the cigarette rant. And then he was an avid smoker, and he was like, "This is ridiculous," and he left. But when it came to finally Mark Tusk, who worked for Miramax at the time, he was our golden child inside Miramax, who's like, no, you got to understand this speaks to us 20 somethings. This is us. you know, you need to get this movie. Forced him to the final screening. Now the final screening had people like, um, you know, Danny DeVito was there, Winona Ryder was there. A lot of people were in the audience, of not just distribution note, but you know, it had gotten the word around to the A-listers, I guess. And that audience was a really great audience. And it was after that screening that the previous chairman of Miramax, who won't be named, was came out and took Kevin and Scott out to sign the contract to buy the film. And then the rest is history.
And 3 films and many appearances later.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing. That is such an amazing story. Thank you so much for telling us that. When you were at Sundance, did you do, this is just my brain, but did you do a lot of partying, or was it really just networking and all of that, and so focused on promoting the film?
No, there was some really good parties, obviously, at Sundance. There was a woman who worked for MTV named Robin Berlin, who was like their talent booker agent person, who I became friends after one of the screenings with. And she was going to all the parties and she wanted to introduce me to all these people. So I went to like a CAA party. I went to a William Morris party. I went to a bunch of different parties like that and absolutely had fun, you know, in doing the press for the film when we were trying to get the film out there. You know, we were talking to people like CNN at the time, Entertainment Tonight, MTV when Kennedy had worked for MTV, interviewed with her and stuff like that. But yeah, we partied. Like I didn't ski, you know, like some people, because literally the townhouse condo that we were renting, like was the foot of a mountain that you ski and you could literally ski right to your back condo sliding glass door kind of thing. Didn't do any of that. But yeah, definitely partied. Now remember, in 94, Park City is not what Park City is today. Park
Mhm.
City then you know, was not that many blocks long of that main stretch. Now, when I was there 15 years ago, um, it had been huge. The schools were built, the whole downtown went further down the hill, that kind of thing. And then condos and more luxury housing went further up the mountain and stuff. So that was a real kind of like culture shock from 94, where it kind of looked like an old Western, you know, Utah kind of, you know, town. And now it's like a really sprawling, you know, almost like an Aspen kind of feel to it.
Yeah, very cool.
so with the character of Dante, the past 30 years, how have you lived with that? How has it, well, you know, it's been a big part of your life and it's basically become your job to kind of promote him and stuff. But what has it become to you the past 30 years?
Well, you know, being incredibly blessed to have worked with a writer director who's incredibly prolific when it comes to writing, really has his pulse on what we were in our 20s, what we were in our 30s, and then with this latest Clerks, what we were in our late 40s, early 50s. But throughout his career and the fact that we've been able to actually grow this personal relationship. I'm one of the people who didn't go to high school with him, who didn't grow up with him like some of his other friends who were in the movie, but also been in other of the movies. I auditioned straight out. But being able to have built that relationship and that trust over the past 30 years has been really genuinely a blessing in my life, because he still is very much genuinely himself. What you see out there is pretty much him. And he's an incredible storyteller. If you've ever been to any of his Q&As or Evening with Kevin Smith or Hollywood Babylon live podcast shows, you know the man knows how to tell a good story for hours and
Yeah.
hours on it. Um, so to know that he trusted me with this character in this series of films, but characters in other films as well. It's been a true blessing. I know people who are my age who grew up with the films and saw the other films and became a fan of both Kevin Smith work and the View Askew universe, as we call it, in general. Um, really enjoyed this whole multiverse universe of multiple films tied into this one universe. So they have their favorites. You know, people like, oh, that Silent Bob character, that's totally me or my friend, or oh, that Jay Muse, you know, the Jason character is totally, I can relate to that, or oh my God, Randall, I love Randall. I got a guy at my job. Oh, what a pain in the ass. He's my Randall. You know, so those type of characters, because people of every day can relate to them. You know, we're not superheroes with amazing powers that do amazing things, but we still touch people in a way that they can relate to it. They can see that movie easily anywhere they go. You've either worked a really crappy, you know, retail job, or you've been in an establishment given really crappy service and can relate to these characters in the world that Kevin has created.
Now, Terry and Molly, have you seen Clerks 3?
I have not seen Clerks 3.
I have, but it's been a really long time.
Because I want to talk about a big point in that movie referring to the character. So Terry,
Sure.
are you okay with it being ruined a little bit?
I am a serial self spoiler. Like
Okay.
I always feel better if I know how it turns out. Then I can really enjoy the film. Like all the tension doesn't help my viewing. So spoil away, Dill. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, unfortunately, Dante meets his demise in Clerks 3. And I want to go behind the scenes with Brian, how he reacted when he first read that on the page.
Yeah.
Well, we got to go back probably almost 10 years ago when his first idea of a Clerks 3 script came out, and he wrote it and he sent it to me and Jeff to read. And since you've seen Clerks 3 and you know how that movie goes, the original Clerks 3 script was incredibly dark, like, you know, Aurora, Colorado dark. That incident that happened there in the movie theater, kind of dark. Which both myself and Jeff were kind of like, ooh, this is taking a turn. And it was shortly after the Aurora, Colorado incident, the Dark Knight incident, that kind of spurred Kevin on to this theme that he had written in the screen. So knowing that, handing that script to me, knowing what the character was going to go through in that, when it came to this version, we never did that version of the script. Plus, there were other producers involved that we didn't want to work with. So that sat. And then 7 years later, he readdressed it again. He rewrote the script. He had recently gone through previously his own life health issues with a heart attack. And he decided to first make Jay and Silent Bob reboot film, which we were a part of. I was a part of. And then when it came a year or so, like a few months after that, the next thing he wanted to do was take another stab at writing a Clerks 3 script. And he did. And he wrote the script, which then we eventually produced, which felt more in the thematic kind of essence of what Clerks, the world of Clerks, is about. So in reading it and reading that version and seeing what he had written in from his own life, from his own experiences, from his own recovery, from his heart issue, I thought, yeah, we can do this. I mean, it's sad for me to let this character go in that way. But when you see the film, it doesn't mean that Dante can't be back in some shape or form, because you'll see in Clerks 3, there are type of reminiscing kind of moments of that. But in saying goodbye to this character in a way, you know, I jokingly tell people when I see them at Comic Cons and stuff, look, it's good enough for Han Solo and Tony Stark and, you know, Wolverine. It's good enough for simple old Dante Hicks.
There we go.
And
I
I
like that
hope,
role of honor. I think Dante fits right in with that.
I think so too. And I mean, and also, you know, maybe even Luke Skywalker. In any event, those type of endings will live on. There are people who on the internet. It happens. Everybody has thousands of takes and opinions on films, where they're like, why would he do that? Oh, this ruins the whole thing. But in the end, I put in the work. I'm proud of that film. I'm proud of the work that I did. I'm incredibly proud of Jeff Anderson and Trevor Furman and Jay Muse, obviously, and Kevin. And we had a lot of cameos from the previous Clerks that showed up as well. Marilyn Gigliotti and Scott Schiaffo and Ernie O'Donnell and Kim Lochran and a whole bunch of people from the original Clerks that showed up. That's really nice. So it was nice to go back to that well, so to speak, shooting it all entirely again in New Jersey. This was the first Kevin Smith film that since the first Clerks, that we shot entirely in New Jersey. And it was nice to do so because pretty much the store itself, Jeff has said this a few times in interviews, the store itself is its own character. So you couldn't make another Clerks, without having one of the original characters, that being the store back in it.
That store is still open, correct?
Oh yeah. People go
Some-
there all the time buying their cigarettes and Gatorade.
Yeah, I have a friend who just visited there and said that they saw some of the cast there.
Yeah.
And really,
Some of the locals, yeah, there's some of the locals who still live in that area who were in the movie. Will go to that. That's their store. That's their convenience store. So that place is never going to close.
So great.
And speaking locally there, you were in town was it Saturday night for the Clerk marathon, the 3 films being played right after another?
Yes, Kevin Smith owns his own movie theater, his childhood movie theater. This is the theater that him and his dad would go to see movies, and him and his friends would sneak in and watch a couple of movies at a time. What used to be called the Atlantic Cinemas is now called the Smodcastle Cinemas. So Kevin and a few of his partners, a few of his friends, got together to buy this theater. And so it's a great space. There's 5 screening rooms, 5 theaters in it. The largest, I think, holds something around 200 seats or 200 and something seats. And we had done this back in September where we called it Clerks Open All Night, a marathon of all 3 movies, which we would start at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night and go until about 6 in the morning with Q&As in between each movie. We sold out the September screenings, and we sold out the one that just happened Saturday night into Sunday. It's quite a marathon. Myself, Kevin Smith, and Kim Lochran were there from the original cast, as well as Ernie O'Donnell, who's the weightlifter trainer guy from the original Clerks. He's one of the partners actually in the theater. And a few others showed up, and it was great. It was a fun time. More than half the crowd were people who had never been to that theater before. And then about a third of the crowd were people who just went to the screening of all 3 of them back in September. So it's nice to have a fan base that just loves to come out and enjoy each other. It's, kind of a weird Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of vibe. People will come cosplayed and yell things at the screen and stuff like that. So it was fun. We did have, though, about a good 12 people who'd never seen the third one, and then one young man who never seen any of them. And me and Kevin were very excited to hear his opinions as each one went by, and we do a Q&A like, so what'd you think? And he'd give us his opinion. So it's good to know that we have a place like the Smodcastle Cinemas on First Avenue in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, to host things, to promote things, to have little events. As a matter of fact, last year at that time, they did a Mallrats screening, and Jeremy London and Jason Lee came for that one for a Q&A afterwards for that. Kevin has had at that theater the Russo brothers to talk about their films. He's had J.A.R. Martin there to talk about the Game of Thrones series. It's not that far. It's about 45 minutes either by train or by car from New York City. It's not that far of a ride for people to come all over. Plus, they get to see, if they want to, they can go to Kevin's comic book shop, which is only 20 minutes in Red Bank, or the actual Quick Stop, which literally is only 10 minutes away from his theater. So it's a good kind of, if you're a fan of Kevin Smith and his works, going to that movie theater, going to one of the events, and then going to either the Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, the comic book shop, or the Quick Stop is, you could do a lot in that one trip.
I'm thinking road trip.
For sure. Last year, we were at one point we were planning to go to New York, and I wanted to take a New Jersey day, but that trip didn't come together. So hopefully, I can when it does.
Yeah, if
Um,
it gets into New York City, New Jersey Transit, New Jersey Coastline, take it down to Red Bank, New Jersey. That's where the comic book store is. If you just want to go to the quick stop, you can go to the Middletown stop and then get a cab or Uber it from there to the store. Same thing with the First Avenue Theater. Or if you want to just go to the theater, there are shuttle ferries from Manhattan to Atlantic Highlands.
Way cool. I'm so down.
Terry
Let me
and
know when you
Molly, do
guys
you
are
have
in
any
town.
questions?
If I'm in town, I'll definitely show you around.
Excellent. Do you guys have questions for him?
I had a kind of strange question, which was, did you experience, like obviously they can bring you back, bring your character back in, reminiscing kind of way, but did you experience grief over that it could move forward, but not in the same way anymore?
Oh yeah. We're not going to lie. When we filmed the segments in the film, there was a long pause and hug, and even when we wrapped the entire film, I mean, there was this kind of like a feeling of like let's say a football player who's finally played his last game, kind of a feel, where it's sad. You're not going to get back on that field again, putting on that jersey. Um, but I know it's not going to be the last time I work with Kevin. As a matter of fact, we shot a movie not that long ago. His latest movie called 4:30 movie. I got to be a part of that. So and we hang out we hang out when he's in town. Like I said, he called me down to be a part of the Clerks all night thing. And it's something that maybe we can play these characters again. The one thing that we are definitely pursuing is doing the Clerks animated series again. We had a incredibly short-lived ABC show called Clerks, the animated series, back in 2000, where we had 6 episodes made, but they only aired 2 episodes before it got canceled so that we could be replaced with Who Wants to Be a Billionaire? Um, so hopefully we can go back to that because physically we're getting on to where it's like, ooh, we need some AI or something going on here. You guys are a little rough to look at, but we still have our voices. So the characters could live on with our voices. And, we've talked about the animated series could be all the years in between the very first film to the very, last film and beyond. That's the great thing about animation. Just ask any of the people from The Simpsons or Family Guy how great it is to just come in and clear your, some people have their own home studios and just record from home and then send it in. So that's our hope. I know Kevin wants to do a Mallrats 2 movie. I did play a different character in Mallrats, so maybe I'll return for that. You never know. So as far as Dante is, he's not quite dead yet, as they said. Not dead yet.
I'm not dead yet.
So
So on your shelves behind you, have all sorts of toys and stuff. What was it
Oh
like
yeah.
the first time you saw yourself as a toy?
Well, it was weird because there's many versions of different toys. There was when we made the animated series, we did the in-action figures.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have one here up there, but they were just standard Dante pose like this. And so the Clerks cartoon in action figures was the first time I ever see myself as a toy. And then years later, Diamond Select Toys did a posable Dante Randall, Jay and Silent Bob characters. Those were like 8-inch or 12-inch posable kind of figures. And then when the Funko Pop kind of trend started going, there was a lot of Jay and Silent Bob ones that came out first. I think there's like 15 different versions of Jay and Silent Bob, but no Clerks ever made. Finally this year, after a lot of like, how do you not have a Dante Randall kind of Clerks pop? Since the third movie was coming out, they decided to relent and come out with the third version. The third version, as I know we're on a podcast, but I'm showing it to the camera. The Dante Hicks from the Clerks 3. There's 5 of them. Clerks. You got Dante, Randall, Elias, and then Jay and Silent Bob. And they're we've gotten a huge response from them. It was a limited run. I know a lot of places have already sold out of them. But I was very flattered, but at the same time went about time, because so many people had made custom versions where people make them themselves, and they'll vacuum form or injection. They have their own injection molded, or they're made out of like a clay material. And people have given me different versions of those. There's one right up there. That's like the movies Clerks 2 version. But yeah, it's nice to see in a toy, like the ultimate toy as me, being a kid who grew up, I was born in late 69 and grew up in the 70s when Star Wars came out. The the universe and the toy I want to be is something from Star Wars. If I could do anything, any universe to join, it would be the Star Wars universe in some way, shape, or form. Look, I could be the 50th trooper on the star deck of 400 lined up. As long as I go, that's me. Count 50 from the right, and that's me. So I could at least have a action figure from Star Wars. That would be my ultimate role. If Filoni is listening, Dave, you can just give me a call. I'm ready to go. Kathleen Kennedy, you too. Give me a call. Call me.
Yeah, JJ did it for Kevin, so they can do it for you.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Awesome.
Hey, Brian, I have a question for you.
Sure.
As an actor, did the success of the original Clerks film and everything that has happened subsequently, right here, as we're just looking at toy figurines and some pretty big success of a cultural kind, did that impact what you wanted out of an acting career, or how you experienced the process of going forward as an actor with this incredible success and attention from, I don't know, had you had film roles before that? Was this out of the gate? What was that like?
So my acting career up to Clerks was just theater. I had done a lot of theater. I'd done off-Broadway stuff. I had done a lot of community theater. That's how they got me, because I'd worked out of the First Avenue Playhouse, and so I was on their list of people. So I'd done nothing but theater up to that point. So Clerks was my first film acting role. And then after that, when we went to Sundance and I was introduced to some people, I definitely put together material to go and then take a trip to LA, meet with agencies out there. I had then signed with an agency out there. And then was being submitted for auditions for different things based from that. I was getting a lot more work on the East Coast because I'd moved to LA and rented a room from a friend's apartment. And I was out there for about 3 months doing the audition process out there and stuff. But I was kept getting offers for work again back East. And then because we had done Mallrats up in Minnesota with Kevin, and then Chasing Amy was happening and he wanted me to be a part of that. So I flew back for Chasing Amy. And then I started to get another role after that here in the New York City, New Jersey area, to the point where I was like, I might as well just stay here and not pay rent to my out there if I'm getting more work here. And it seemed to just keep rolling along with that. When we did the cartoon series, we did all of that out in LA. So I had like a one of those long-term hotel kind of places, executive long-term stay kind of places. So I did that during the 6 to 8 weeks that we were recording the cartoon series. And then same thing with Clerks too. I stayed in an apartment out there for the 2, 3 months that we were working on that. And it was the kind of thing that I love going to LA. I like being out there. But I'm an East Coast kind of kid and preferred being here. But as far as like, did I expect certain more things out of the career? I mean, I think everybody likes to have bigger and better opportunities going on. But I was happy doing a lot of theater, to be honest with you.
That's cool. Well, and I was thinking about the fact that I mean, for everybody involved, that Clerks was the kind of film that hundreds of thousands of filmmakers and actors dream of being a part of. And you guys captured that lightning in a bottle to the point that it is, I don't mean this in any negative way, but it's an industry, really. Which is so cool and beautiful. And like you were saying, new people coming in and experiencing the films, and yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is a film that is taught in many different film schools all
Yeah.
over the world. It's a good way to show with very little financial kind of backing, with a great script, people who are willing to put in the work for you, and simple. I mean, the sets were the store, were the locations, were the places, and we only had 3 or 4 of them anyway to work out of. There wasn't many location moves on the schedule. With clever writing, you can see what you can do. And today there are festivals that are, the phone festivals, we have 48 hours to make a film on your phone, and they give you a premise of some sort. And, you and your friends get together and try to compete to put together an edit today.
I did
Uh,
one of those. It was really fun.
yeah, they are a lot of fun, and it helps the creative price, the process. If we had this back in 93 when we made Clerks, oh my God, it would be stunning, 4K phone cameras and sound that can jack right into your phone if you want. And, the equipment that's available to people today to make films has made it to where now there's a lot of content, just not many places that you can see content. I mean, there are many channels to see content, but I mean, to get things now into theaters these days is incredibly tough. It's incredibly tough to even get it picked up for streaming sometimes. And even when it is picked up on streaming, the money that is paid by streamers is not what a film used to get paid for back in the day. We don't have the half of the revenue used to come from hard media, owning a DVD, owning this, owning that. We don't have that outlet anymore. This year, Best Buy decided to never carry Blu-rays and DVDs ever again.
Wow.
Because everybody is streaming. There's no need for it for them. I'm an old school guy that likes to own physically the Blu-ray or the DVD or the steel book, whatever you want to own these days. And the only people who put up that type of money to produce those contents are these Marvel movies or big budgeted Star Wars movies or something like that. Um, so it's weird. The industry in the past 12, 15 years has shifted in a very dramatic way. And I believe with the writer's strike and the actor strike, this happened this past year was a focal point and a stand, a line in the sand saying like, look, I know the industry model has changed tremendously, but we and our contracts need to pivot with it, especially with the more and more use of AI. Maybe not writing scripts so much, maybe not so much, altering the appearance of different characters or using digital characters or digital voices. But at the same time, it should be taken note that we have to, we as artists need to be paid the proper level of creativity, because without the creativity, good luck with AI scripts.
Yeah, you need the good inputs if you are going to use that.
Right.
And people
Were you in?
it's derivative of their creativity.
Sorry?
And for people to be compensated when it's derivative of their creativity, when they're using AI.
Correct.
It's derived
Correct. I mean, that's why the New York Times is suing some of these open, chat GPT and these different Google AI outlets, because they trained their programs by using things like the New York Times and CNN and all this other stuff. And those people were writers, and they need to be compensated. So we'll see what happens with that. In the meantime, though, I'm a big fan of the film festivals like Sundance, Tribeca, on Telluride, all these amazing film festivals around the world, because there are still people who are making films that don't necessarily get the distribution that they should, but are telling important stories, or at least important to them and personal stories of points of view that you may not normally hear of in the mainstream kind of media outlet when it comes to what comes out of Hollywood in films. So that's why I always encourage people who want to get into this industry. Don't just watch films like you see on HBO and Netflix and whatnot, but go to festivals, meet the actual filmmakers, meet the actual people who are distributing, meet the people who actually are in these films. And film festivals are like that. They're very open in that sense, to where meet and greets like that can be done. If you're an outlet like a podcast or something like that, and apply for media accreditations so you can get more information out of that. And it's a thing that people don't realize is out there until you've been to one. Then you go, oh, wow, I didn't know I had all access to all this information. I
Yeah,
went to, it's a great education. I went to the Cannes Film Festival twice, and I learned more there than anywhere I've ever been about film and the industry, the distribution of it, the financing of it, the selling of different marketplaces from around the world, things like that. It's an education I think people who want to make films need to learn.
hmm Yeah, I've been to several film festivals and I love them. I've had some film show at some film festivals and it was a great experience. But I do tend to be a little shy, so I find it hard to network sometimes because I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone.
Well, that in a way, that's a good way, because the greatest way of educating yourself sometimes is just listening to the conversations of other people talking about the industry, and you
That's
just take
true. And
those notes,
the panels are so great
right?
for me. I love them, even though I'm too shy to ask a question.
But someone may eventually, and there's no harm in going, can you do me a favor? Can you ask this question for me? And they'd be like, what? And you'd be like, okay,
Okay, I'll have to try that one.
there you go.
Brian, I wanted to do a callback because I
Yeah.
had the really great opportunity to interview Bob Hawke when Film Hawke, talk about a meta moment, when Film Hawke showed at Sundance, and I just got lucky with the publicists representing that film, and I got to spend a good 15-20 minutes with him. And the more than anything, the reason I bring this up is because I mean, of course I had done some homework, but the feeling of being in the presence of someone incredibly important who didn't take themselves overly seriously or anything like that at all was really special. And I still send a chat to Bob on social media every once in a while. He's still hanging around, and I know he's had some health problems, but I feel like that was one of the great just beautiful moments of Sundance for me, to get to meet that guy. And of course, among other people that I was aware that he had influenced, the cultural spread of a film, the way that Clerks, I mean, I remember exactly where I was when Clerks came out and when I saw it. And yeah, it's really something really cool.
The absolute influence and importance that Bob Hawke has and had on the industry in general. If
Yeah.
they ever did It's a Wonderful Life kind of version of him, and if he didn't exist, there would be so many incredibly iconic pieces of art that wouldn't have been seen, wouldn't have been made, wouldn't have gotten the attention, wouldn't have been what they've turned out to be without his fingerprints on it. Scripts that he doctored for people, advice that he gave to different people to do with what to do with their film, introductions of people to filmmakers, things of that nature. The influence of Bob Hawke, which you saw in the Film Hawk, and if your listeners want to see a great documentary about especially the independent film industry, watch this amazing film called Film Hawk. And I'm not saying that because I'm also in it as one of the talking heads. But it's a great film about independent film, especially in the late 80s, 90s, and the early aughts, that I think people who want to know about or have just a liking of the filmmaking industry should watch. And his own life is a fascinating life in itself.
Very cool.
Next, what I want to talk about is public appearances. The first time I met you was back in 2014, if I believe, the opening of the comic book store on the West Coast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That was a while.
yeah. You autographed a bunch of my DVDs, and one of the sweetest moments is where you would just sit there and you talk to me and my wife. You asked us where we came from, and we said Utah, and you're like, just for this? And we're like, no, we had a whole trip and everything. But my first memory is one of my favorites because you were just so sweet, asking about our trip. And
that's just, you can thank my mother and father for that. They're the ones that raised me to be polite and to just be, I live by a very basic rule: treat others like you want to be treated. It's the simple golden rule. And I do it well. Anybody who I come in contact with, listen, if you're a server, waiting my table, I'll ask if they have a name badge. I'll say, hey, Tom, good to see you. Or, if they don't, and I'll be like, oh, could we get this? And I'm like, and they were like, all right, I'll get that right for you. And they're like, by the way, what was your name? And they're like, Tom. I'm like, oh, thank you, Tom. And then whenever I ask for something, I'm like, hey, Tom, I'm sorry, could I get a side of barbecue sauce with this? I think people, no matter what you do for a living, or if you're not doing anything for a living, I think people just deserve basic human respect. Just that's simple enough. So even if it's a busy con appearance at like Fan X or wherever I'm going to be at, and it's maybe even a long line, you're not going to get the bums rush out of my line. Like, here you go, and handed you your idea. All right, next. I'm not like that because I'm also interested in where people come from. I'm interested in people's stories. Everybody has their own story. We're our own documentary inside ourselves. It's just a matter of someone turning that channel on. So hearing about people and where they're coming from, or what you're doing here, or, who's this little man, if you got your kid with you, that kind of thing, I think makes it more memorable. You obviously remember that moment, and I didn't want to be, I don't want to be the moment like, did you see that dick? What was that all about? You know what I mean? And trust me, I've met some people in the industry who have a very worldwide, huge following, who are not the most pleasant of people sometimes. And I think to myself, geez, Louise, like if you just took a moment out of your day to realize that these people are here, they may have paid a good amount of money, they may even saved up for this trip to this event, and you're just going to give them the bum's rush, or just give them a, hey, thanks, and just hand them back their autograph. It's, to me, it's very bad karma, if you ask me.
do you have any memories from that day? Because that was kind of a big deal at a West Coast shop.
I think we went until 6 a.m. is what I
Yeah.
remember. We
The
had
line
to
was so long.
we had to stop the line. I went out a few times to kind of like, funny monkey guy to keep everybody, all right, don't worry about it. We're moving along. I remember that, and we ended at 6 a.m. I remember Jason Lee was having a great time, but he had to go, and a few people had to leave. But that's also the reason why it took so long to do it is Kevin especially is even more so giving people
Yeah.
hugs. Hey man, where you're coming from? And really, and like he wants to really know stories, and people then tell them their stories about what Kevin's films meant to them, and they'll tell stories about, oh, my dad introduced it to me, or oh, I dated this girl who we watched the movie together, or things like that. And so we give people their time because in all honesty, me, Kevin, Jeff, Jason, all we're fans of other entertainment properties as well, and we'd be the same way in front of like a Mark Hamill or William Shatner or stuff like that. We'd want to have that type of time to have that experience because it's gonna only be that moment and that moment only, and who knows when I'll be able to see that person or talk to that person in person again. So we try to give the audience what we want, like that screening of the three movies. We started we let people in and we started talking, and we had a little mini auction of things that Kevin was selling at 10 o'clock. I didn't leave the theater till 7:30 the next morning because we took so many people's questions and stuff. And Ernie O'Donnell, who's the running manager and co-owner of the Smod Castle Theater, would be flashing the flashlight up at us on stage, like, all right, wrap it up. And Kevin always just blows through those lights, like, yeah, I'll wrap it up when I'm done, kind of a thing. But that's how we are. We overcompensate your money's worth. You're not going to get your money's worth. You're going to get your money's worth and maybe 4 other shows worth of money's worth out of us.
If a convention wants to book you, what is the process? And you
Sure.
posted about this the other day.
Sure. So I know I get a lot of questions all the time. Hey, you should come to such and such con. And how do we get you there? And I always tell them this. I said, the best way to get me to come to cons is the cons themselves invite the guests. So I always tell fans to go to your local cons, social media, their website, and write them and say, hey, man, you guys should have the guys from Clerks. And then I tell them, and then they can contact our reps. The rep company that is our convention appearance reps is ZSC Entertainment, zscentertainment.com. They represent a huge chunk of the View Askew actors, including Michael Rooker and Jason Lee and Jeremy London and things like that nature, plus a lot of the Walking Dead people, a lot of the Star Wars people. So they can go to zscentertainment.com. There's a contact us page, put in the information. That's what a promoter can do to have us show up. And it's not just conventions. We've done appearances at comic book stores, toy stores, different events. I've gone to hockey games because they know I'm a big hockey fan. So, and we had hockey on the roof in our movies, so they know we love hockey. Things like that. As a matter of fact, Niagara Falls, the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, I'm going to a 420 Expo, so a cannabis friendly event. Myself and Jeff Anderson will be up there, 420expo.com for more information. Niagara Falls 420 Expo, excuse me, for Niagara Falls 420 Expo. But those are the type of events that we get booked for. So if you're looking to do it, go to the local cons, social media, tell them to, you should bring the Clerks people or anybody you want. And that goes not just for us, for any guest. They listen to the fans because they know you're the ones that are coming in, buying your gate ticket and going to buy the autographs and stuff like that. So that's the easiest way to do it.
And next month, you've got the View Askew cruise.
Correct.
Late February.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, that looks like it's gonna be lots of fun.
Yeah. The beginning of the month, I'm up at Alaska Con in Fairbanks, Alaska. So I'll be up there freezing, but the end of the month, I'll be able to sail from Miami to the Bahamas for 4 days to defrost from Fairbanks, Alaska. Yeah, you can go to cruiseaskew.com for more information. There's a whole huge itinerary there I'm hosting 2 pub crawls on the ship. At first there was only 1, but it sold out immediately and there was a huge response to do more. So they reached out to me going, "Do you mind doing a second pub crawl on the ship?" I said, not on the same day, I won't, but sure, we can do a second pub crawl. I'm also there's tons of live
The early
podcasts.
pub crawl and the late pub crawl.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you bring a bottle of vodka, but you swap the vodka out for water, and you make it look like you're drinking vodka, but you're only. Um, there's a bunch of podcasts that are going to be done live. We have a whole tons of bands, including Soul Asylum, will also be on board the ship. A live script reading of that very first Clerks 3 script that we talked about, the very dark
Yeah,
version.
I was just going to mention
We're
that.
gonna do a we're gonna do a live script reading of that. We're gonna do a script reading of the Mallrats movie, a bunch of things. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Cruiseaskew.com, Miami to the Bahamas and back, the 23rd to the 26th, I believe, of February. I know the rooms are running out, so if you want one, grab one now. We'll see you on the cruise.
Nice.
And you mentioned earlier podcasts. You actually have one yourself.
I do. I have one called the O'Hallerant. The O'Hallerant you can find on YouTube, Twitch, and on Facebook. You can go to the O'Hallerant slash or youtube.com/ the O'Hallerant. You can go to Twitch, Brian C. O'Halloran on Twitch, and then the O'Hallerant on Facebook.
And how did that come about? Was that a victim of COVID, or had you started it before that?
I had been wanting to do one for a while before that. As people know, Kevin kind of is the
Yeah.
weird great grandfather of podcasting in general. And one day he reached out years ago going, "How come Brian O'Halloran doesn't have a podcast?" This is when Kevin was starting his own network, the Smodcastle Network, the Smodcast Network. He's like, "You should have one. I don't know, call it like I don't know, the O'Hallerant or something." So oh, that stuck in me. I was like, "Oh, I should." But I was on the road a lot and didn't, needed to get equipment like a Zoom, mixer and get the microphones and stuff like that. So I did all the buying of stuff first. And then was always on the road and I would do some interviews while out at cons. Um, but they were just audio podcasts. And I was like, oh, and to get it out onto different networks, I was getting all overwhelmed with it. So it stopped. So that when the pandemic lockdown happened, now I had no excuse. A, I didn't want to do a sourdough starter, but B, I wanted to reach out to my other creatives who were going out of their minds in their own houses. And it was a way to be creative while still being at home. I did 2 or 3 staged readings of plays via Zoom that we broadcast. And so then I decided, look, let's do it. Let's do the O'Hallerant. So I did season 1, which was in 2022. I did 31 episodes. I just started season 2 a couple of weeks ago. I have 1 episode done with that. I usually do Friday nights at 9 o'clock on both Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And yeah, I also have a Instagram and a Twitter or X page of the O'Hallerant. You can go to the O'Hallerant on both of those to follow along when I'm recording.
Awesome.
Nice.
I covered all the questions I have. Terry, Molly, do you have any questions for him?
I mean, I got a silly one, which is
Love it.
if I hosted a Clerks burlesque show, could I reach out to a representative to hire you to come?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. I mean, I've seen burlesque where a couple of people were dressed as like Jay and Silent Bob, and that was different. I'll put it that way. Seeing that type of Jay and Bob. But yeah, absolutely. I've hosted a few of those burlesque events before. They're a lot of fun. The participants are always incredibly talented. So yeah, by all means. Plus, I love Utah every time I'm out there. So.
Cool. Well, I wanted to say thank you. I can't believe I'm just sitting here talking, having this conversation and getting all these juicy tidbits of information about your life and about your experiences. So
Well,
from my,
thank you. Man.
thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, welcome. Well, thank Dylan. He was the one who reached out and was
Good.
very kind about asking. And usually when I have the time, I can do these type of things. I enjoy it myself. So same
Yeah,
thing, Terry.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. Brian, I'm gonna be a little bit of a paraphrase of the great man Chris Farley, but it's just awesome. It's just awesome what you guys have done. And I used to work in licensing, so I know like the world of business development and right doing, you know, deals and this and that and all those things, but the things that you've spoken about today about being with people and taking time to sign an autograph for them and to reflect an experience of life like that, the capture that you guys did in that film, that just it's awesome, just totally awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good
man.
Chris Farley.
Yeah, all the best and great continued success to all of you for sure.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. And maybe
You're
one of these years we'll run into each other at Sundance again.
Yeah.
or at Molly's Burlesque Clerk
Or the
show.
Molly's
That's right.
Burlesque.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Just
you get that.
saying.
You
Just
get
saying.
that.
Do
I
it.
love
Now, now, Brian, we do have a series of bonus questions to close out the show. The first one is, what does creativity mean to you?
What does creativity mean to me? Creativity means to me is taking something out of nowhere, just out of nowhere, and being able to put it through your body, put it through your thoughts, and making it something, something to the point that other people, and sometimes not other people, can appreciate. You can be a creative cook. You could be a creative singer. You could be a creative talker, storyteller. You could be creative of how you decorate your bathroom. You could be creative in how you just dress yourself. I see very interesting people with incredible outfits all the time. People create every day. And that's creativity. And it starts in family, but also in the schools. We need more arts programs to be funded. And I tell this all the time to fundraising events and people who are in legislation of and in politics. I said, look at you fine people in this room. You're all dressed to the nines. Where did you learn how to dress so well? You learned that through art. You learned color coordination through art. You listen to songs on the ride here to your event. Where do you get that enjoyment of music, but listening to it in music class or going and listening to the radio? You're all appreciative and consumers of art. The bill is due to pay for the artist to get the talent to be out there, to learn those instruments, to be able to paint on canvases, you know, build architectural plans. That comes from schools, art schools, and not in the private sector way, but in the real public school sector way. You're worried about kids getting, you know, into gangs and getting into different wrong sides of life. Well, you have to occupy their time with things, and things that are creative are usually not destructive. And when you get them into creative thinking, that's all they want to do is create, not destroy. And that's where I think a lot of these bigger cities where budgets are being pulled tight are losing out when you start closing and removing arts from the classroom. You know, the Churchill once said, a country that does not have culture is not a country. You know, why else do you fight a war but to preserve the culture of your country? And culture is the arts. That's creativity to me.
Beautiful. This next question is a little less serious. Who is your favorite Muppet and why?
Favorite Muppet and why? I mean, I immediately I want to think Animal, just because he was such a showman and stuff like that. But you know what? Fozzie Bear. Fozzie Bear was a comic who just wanted to bring laughs to people, who was a very simple guy, put on that hat, have that tie on, and he was ready to go. So I'd say Fozzie Bear.
I love it. And the final little set of questions. In the movie of your life, who would you want to play you? And what genre is the film?
It's funny. I always, whenever I saw the original BBC version of The Office, Ricky Gervais and I have a very close look. You know, but we're both getting older now. So if we're talking like now and that type of thing, Ricky Gervais is a good pick for me. Before that, you know, ooh, that's tough. That's tough. That's tough. I can only think of actors who are older now. You know, like Charlie Sheen at his young Platoon self, or you know, something like that would have been good. Even when he did that movie, The Arrival, he had a Van Dyke as well. I'm like, he's stealing my look. But now I don't know who now. I don't know. I can't see a role that Jared Leto has never gone wrong with. You know, I get a lot of people like, you look like Stephen Root. So, you know, there's Stephen Root. But once again, these are people who are now older. So it'd be interesting to hear what your fan base thinks. Who would you find to play me?
You. I'd have you play you.
There you go.
Now I'm thinking of Barry Keoghan, if that's how you say it. Who's
Oh,
just
okay.
Burn. Not that there's like there's somewhat of a similarity, maybe in the eyes mostly, but he's a great actor, so I feel like he would play you.
He's a phenomenal actor. I
That's my
haven't seen Burn yet, but I know it's. I keep telling people, keep telling me, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. So yeah, he's awesome. He's
I feel like
absolutely awesome.
Radcliffe. I could see Radcliffe.
Yeah,
And
I could see Radcliffe do that.
plus, he's total Oscar bait. So, you know, I mean, you'd be right in there. Probably a best picture and best actor, you know.
Let's manifest this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brian, for being here today. If I can paraphrase the famous Clerks line.
Yes,
we appreciate it.
Thank you for having. It's so funny now that I think about it. There is a group of filmmakers out of Scotland who made a film called Shooting Clerks. It's a biopic about Kevin and making Clerks. And the actor that they found there to play me, he looked a lot like me as well. So if you get it, it's not out yet. They're in the process of finishing their distribution deal. They'll have they had some screenings like 2 months ago around the country where they four-walled the film in many theaters. But they'll be coming out with the Blu-ray DVD version in the next couple of months. So there's an actor there who played me. So.
And you had a part in that as well, right?
Yes, we all showed up in it, playing different roles in it.
That's so
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. If you would like a quick rundown of your socials.
Sure. Anybody want to
find you?
reach me on Facebook, you can go to the Brian C. O'Halloran on Facebook. On Instagram, it's Brian C. O'Halloran, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, Brian C. O'Halloran is the best way to reach me for any type of, you know, if you're going to tag, like we were talking about, coming to a show, going to a con, that's the thing to do, is to tag me on that, and then they can get in touch with whoever they need to get in touch with.
When we're done here, I'm going to go harass Dan Farr to get you guys out here this fall. So,
nice.
Alrighty. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Terry.
Brian,
thank you, Molly.
All the best
Good
to
to see
you.
you all.
Good
Wonderful
to see you
time.
guys.
Molly,
Have
I
a
look
great day.
forward to the wonderful show.
Let's do it.